Hello there, very good evening and welcome to this broadcast this evening as we discussed. Guess most of you, our viewers, would have been following what was happening in the National Assembly within the last few hours. I have with me, I'm your host, Eddy Layne, and of course, I have with me the Honorable Bishop Juan Edghill, Minister of Public Works, the Honorable Susan Rodrigues, Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, and of course, Sanjeev Datadin, Member of Parliament. Gentlemen, lady, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Eddy.
All
Good
right, so
evening, everybody. Good evening, Ed.
we're gonna get straight into this almost immediately, and like I said initially, I guess most of Guyana would have seen the behavior of the opposition in Parliament. I don't think very many people are surprised as to what they would have seen. But of course, it runs, completely opposite to what is expected in the National Assembly. I want to start with you, Minister Rodrigues, in terms of this is your first time as a member of Parliament. This 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 term in office of the PPP and your first time in the 12th Parliament as a member of Parliament. What you witnessed today, your thoughts. I know you heard the stories before.
Well, Eddy, this is a new breed, not only of the APNU+AFC, but it's also a new breed of PPPC parliamentarians and politicians. And so after what I witnessed in the 5 years being in opposition and having to fight the APNU+AFC for each of those 5 years, then having to continue that fight after the no confidence motion, the violation of the Constitution throughout that entire period from December 2018, fight for a date for elections, and then eventually having the elections on March the 2nd, 2020, and then another fight and the 5-month period when we were waiting for the declaration of the results, witnessing everything in Ashman's building, being on the ground, witnessing the behaviors and witnessing the extent and the extreme to which this current opposition is willing to go. Nothing surprises me anymore. So as vulgar as the behavior was today in Parliament, as disruptive and destructive as it was, it doesn't surprise me in the least, because now it is starting to settle in that they are going to be in opposition for a very, very long time. The APNU+AFC is almost allergic to progress. They don't like to see progress, and they especially don't like to see it when the PPPC is in office. And so with the passage of these two pieces of historic legislation that was passed today, the Local Content Bill and the Natural Resource Fund Bill, they know that progress is inevitable. They know, and they have witnessed the period we've been in office now from last year, August to now, and the people of this country have been witnessing us staying faithful to our manifesto commitments and serious about delivering on the promises that we made to the people of this country. And so they know we mean business. And so in that short time that we were able to prepare these two pieces of legislation and bring it to the National Assembly, something that they could not do in the 5 years they were in office. We discovered oil in 2015, and we had to go back in office, and in 2021, pass a local content legislation. And so they know now that we mean business, and they know that the future of Guyana is very bright. They know that the future for Guyanese is going to be secure under our government. And so it means that they will remain in opposition. And so they're very, very fearful. And therefore, the lengths that we saw them go to today, they're going to be willing to push the envelope every opportunity they get, because they want to ensure that they disrupt. They want to prevent us from staying true to our commitments. They don't want to see progress. And so nothing they did today surprised me. And I want to assure them and take this opportunity to assure all Guyanese that we will not back down. Fearful of anything that the APNU+AFC will do or try to do in Parliament or try to disrupt our agenda. We're not fearful, and we will stand up to them just as we did the years in opposition. We will continue to stand up to them now that we are in government, and we will not fall for their scare tactics or their bullyism or any attempt to stop progress in this country.
And what we saw this evening is the naked PNC. Absolutely no respect for the National Assembly. And Bishop, I'm going to bring you in just a bit on this, because I think it is the view of many people that the PNC, APNU+AFC, whatever they call themselves, they have a special trait about them. When they can't defend something, when they can't win, they break up the party. They break up the proceedings. So clearly they had a bill of, both pieces of legislation that they had before them were foolproof. They were foolproof, they were sound, they were solid. So instead of joining the debate and make a contribution and embarrass themselves, they decide that they're going to disrupt and they're going to create chaos and confusion. Bishop, I bring you in, followed by Sanjeev.
Well, Eddie, the PNC is anti-development, anti-progress, anti-people. They are noted for elitism, where they only look after their interests, their pockets, and their future. This piece of legislation, particularly the Natural Resources Fund, as well as the local content bill that was passed earlier, are pieces that are designed to ensure that Guyanese benefit from the prosperity that is coming to Guyana as a result of wealth garnered from the oil and gas sector. What, in essence, let me explain to the ordinary man what they were seeking to do. They were seeking to ensure that we cannot have a legal framework in place so that we could draw down from the Natural Resources Fund to be able to carry on with our developmental agenda. They would like to see that delayed, postponed. Because if we have been able to do so much in the last 16 months without oil money, we brought COVID assistance to every household. Without oil money, we brought, because we care, assistance to all of the children in both public and private school, as well as uniform vouchers. Without oil money, we were able to support farmers who were affected as a result of floods and the loss of their crops and livelihoods and homesteads during the May, June, July period. Without oil money, we were able to enhance infrastructural development. What they're basically saying, hey, if we allow the PPP to have a legal framework that authorizes them within the law to draw down on oil money in a framework where it is predictable, everybody knows what is moving from the Natural Resources Fund to the Consolidated Fund, they'll be able to build more roads. So all the people who are calling me and Susan Rodrigues and saying, look, in my housing scheme or in my area, we need our roads done, they know we'll have more money to build those roads. We will be able to have world-class health services and facilities. When you go to a regional hospital, it will be so equipped, state-of-the-art surgery. We'll be able to bring in and new children new children hospitals, specialty hospitals. We'll be able to do much more in terms of education, provide the kind of free education at the University of Guyana, more scholarships for people to study online. We'll be able to support other sectors, whether it's agriculture or tourism or manufacturing or agro-processing, information communication technology, to build a foundation for it to be able to take off, to create more jobs. We're talking here about prosperity for Guyanese people. And they know if we have been able to do all that we have done in the last 16 months with reversing a lot of the draconian charges that they impose, where we have been able to get less and do more, what will happen if we get access to the oil money? So this was basically PNC thuggish, bullyism, can't win an intelligent, rational, and logical argument in the halls of the National Assembly. And when they can't do better in terms of their argument, they get louder. And tonight they went to an all-time low. They went to an all-time low. And this is shameful. Listen, protest in the National Assembly is not something that we are against. We have done it. We protested against Granger when he acted unconstitutionally, when he tried to remove Carville Duncan unconstitutionally. He came to address the parliament, and the many other unconstitutional acts that he did, we protested. But you're talking about assaulting the Speaker of the National Assembly? You're talking about leaving your seat and coming down into the wells of the National Assembly, approaching a Speaker on his foot, seeking to intimidate. You're talking here about creating an environment of instability. What they wanted was for us to lose our cool. But it's two different characters you're talking about. You're talking here about people who are confident in the PPPC, who are assured of their agenda, people who are set on bringing about prosperity for Guyana, versus a set of desperate people who were desperate to steal an election. Now that they're in opposition, they don't mind throwing mud on everybody because they're already messy, they look horrible, they sound bad, so they intend to make everybody else look bad. But the actions that they took are not only illegal, unconstitutional, intimidating, and against all parliamentary norms. It has brought a new low to Guyana tonight, and we must condemn that. The assault on the Speaker, and Ferguson seems to be having have a penchant for gold, and she thought that she would be able to steal the mace tonight. I don't know what was the value. She probably planned to take it to a pawn shop and pawn it for some money because she's desperate. But the stealing of the mace, the assaulting of the Speaker, the using of derogatory language against members of the staff of the parliament because he held on to the mace, you're a house Negro. Basically say you're a black man and you ought to move out of the way, let me do what we want to do. And if you stand up for what is right and just, you're a house Negro. That is the mentality of the PNC. And Eddy, Sanjeev, and Susan, you know what I'm assured of? The people in Linden are ashamed of this bunch tonight. The people in Buxton are ashamed of this bunch tonight. The people in Agricola are ashamed of this bunch tonight. The people across this country are ashamed of this bunch tonight. Their supporters in the diaspora and those who help to finance their campaign, they are ashamed of them tonight because they did not vote for them to go to the National Assembly to bring this yard foul, standpipish behavior into the National Assembly and to behave in such a manner. But the bottom line is the PPPC remains resilient, confident, and steadfast in advancing the developmental priorities and the developmental agenda for Guyana. And we want to assure the nation we will continue to do that.
Thank you very much, Bishop. I'm going to bring you in here, Sanjeev, and you heard all that Bishop said. You heard all that Minister Rodrigues would have said. But the bottom line, I believe, what we saw tonight was a manifestation of a behavior that is in line with a group of hopeless people who, like you rightly said, Bishop, can't contribute to an intelligent and a logical debate. So they resort to their next best option, which is to disrupt, to block up, and to create chaos. And of course, the attacks on the Speaker and the attacks on on the gentleman who was simply doing his job as a member of the staff of the parliament.
Ed, the position was today was a day when legislation that, landmark legislation has been passed in Guyana. The local content bill, for the first time, every Guyanese is entitled to the patrimony of the country. The resources of the country are now specifically by law. Guyanese citizens are entitled to it. This has not always been the case. We've not always had this wealth. We've not always had the opportunity to do this. But this is a situation where, for the first time, every Guyanese citizen is entitled to participate and to get themselves equipped and to get business and to do business in Guyana. That's what the local content policy is. It gives an advantage to Guyanese citizens, because if you can provide the services and if you can provide the goods, then the business should be yours. This is what it is designed to do, to build capacity within the nation so that we can benefit. Now, the complaint that they were making about the local content bill was that it should be sent to a select committee, where it would only delay the passage of such legislation. But they were in government for 5 years. 4 days after the election, oil was discovered in Guyana, and they could have passed local content legislation. They could have even passed a policy. They could have done anything, issued a guideline, waved the flag, anything they could have done, write a letter to the newspaper, and inform people how it is that they're looking out for Guyanese interests. They never did that. Now what they want to do, when the legislation, which has been in a consultation process for a year, since January, when it has been consultations with everyone since that time, they now want to delay it further. Every day they delay it, Ed, is to delay the opportunities that Guyanese nationals would be entitled to. Every day they delay it, it's business, it's dollars and cents that could be to the benefit of Guyanese citizens that's being taken away. And they play that's just a delay game. The only contribution of substance they make is really derogatory, and the only contribution that they made as a group is to delay it. Why would you want to delay the opportunity for Guyanese citizens to benefit? Why would you want to delay that any further? It's been a long time. We've been talking local content, but we've not been backing it up with anything. Now there is something that we can hold up to everyone and say this has the force of law and you must obey it. But when it came to the Natural Resources Fund, then, Ed, it was a different picture. We had legislation passed in 2019 on January 3rd. We all know that in 2018, in December, the government fell. They should not have been passing legislation. The Caribbean Court of Justice made comments and said that the government was on a different footing. They were a caretaker government to go to an election. But they came to Parliament in a haste to remove Charan Das as a member. That was one of the things on the agenda that same day on January 3rd. And the other thing they did on that day is they passed the Natural Resources Fund bill. They passed it when the PPPC, which was in opposition at the time, was not in Parliament, because the government had fallen. They should not have been passing legislation. It was illegitimate for them to do that. And illegitimate doesn't come from us saying so on some fanciful argument. This is what the president of the Caribbean Court of Justice said. Justice Adrian Saunders said the government was on a different footing. And in the most important legislation for the benefit of Guyanese present and in the future, the financial resources we get from petroleum, they choose to pass it in the dark of night. That's what they did. Now, this legislation today corrects those errors. It maintains a lot of what was there, but it changes the structure. It takes away the minister's power. and the overreach of the minister. It puts in place a board of 5 members instead of having a 22-member oversight. And Ed, we have to say too, they were providing for all these organizations and which have been registered and call themselves civil organizations and civil society. They were being part of this 22-member oversight, Ed, and they were going to be paid for this. So they have an interest. What has happened is instead of the minister doing all of this, there is now a board of between 3 to 5 members. A small board run the fund. That's their job. They have to produce money, but there is still an oversight committee, which is independent and non-governmental. And that is made up of religious organizations, professional bodies. And what happens is instead of having every professional body, we say all the professional bodies get together and send us your representative. The private sector commission, send us your representative. The religious organization, send us your representative. We don't have to have each and every one. It will become cumbersome. 22 people on a committee, what will that achieve? It's too much, it's too cumbersome. And then the complaint that is made in some quarters is that the president elects the board of directors of the 5-member board, and he will only appoint his own people. Listen, in some utopian society, you might find a man who has no political allegiance, no agenda, no connection to anyone, no friends. You might find that somewhere. But until we do, we should put the man who is answerable to the people of Guyana, the man who faces the electorate, the man who has been elected, lawfully elected as president. He is answerable to the people. And His Excellency, the President, has made a commitment. These are the things he promised to do, and he's been fulfilling his promises. So what the Natural Resources Fund, the legislation has built in the board of directors. It has built in the oversight committee, which is independent. It has an investment committee, which is again a different agency. All of that anyway has to go to Parliament. All of the funds that will be taken out of the fund are known to the whole world in advance. This is how much you could take year 1. This is how much you could take year 2. This is how much you could take year 3 for the next 5 years. And all of it has to be put in the budget. And all of that budget has to be scrutinized. So Ed, when they say that the fund is somehow, they need more time, they need other things. There was legislation previously, but that legislation made the minister the sole power. Now we've taken that away, which fulfills the Santiago principles that everyone is talking about, that the government and the ministers should not have exacting control. So to complain, what would you complain about? That's why they disrupted it then. What would they come and say? The legislation we previously passed, which had formulas that no one could understand, which had uncertainty and all the power with the minister, that was a good idea. How could that be a good idea? Couldn't be.
And that is why I wanted to bring you back to that issue, Sanjeev, because what I recognize, I think, like you were saying now, I think all of Guyana, because we saw a petition with about 60 people signing and claiming that they're against the bill. And I am of the view that maybe they signed blindly without seeing what is in the bill. Because we saw today, you had 60 people signing, but you had 15 people protesting the bill outside of Parliament. That is a clear indication that those who signed blindly, and they have now seen the bill, and they recognize that the bill has really created a level of transparency and accountability which the People's Progressive Party Civic has been speaking about. This bill has really created that. And I think the opposition recognized that too. They recognized it, and it's for that reason they created the kind of confusion and chaos and attack and assault the Speaker of the National Assembly, because he was pulled practically from his chair almost. We were all present, we all saw that. We saw the Aubrey Norton hooliganism being manifested in his minions who are in parliament, because it's their behavior is what we maybe have to expect coming from the PNC, a desperate bunch of people being led by a wild man. Obviously, that is what we're going to see. Susan, I bring you back here and then I bring Bishop.
Yes, so a couple of things that people need to know, Eddie. So the PNC have this soundbite about stealing oil money or thieving oil money, and they're trying to use that to gain traction. They can't come to the floor of the National Assembly to debate us intellectually or to propose amendments on how we can perhaps put more safeguards in place for the fund or for the management of the fund. They don't have any suggestions like that because we have put that in the bill already. So yes, they came instead to disrupt. But what happened today was the height of hypocrisy, because one of the things that they claimed is that they were not consulted. And Sanjeev alluded to it before when he was speaking. When they went to the parliament on the 3rd of January 2019, days after the passage of a no confidence motion, the then opposition was not consulted. Nobody was consulted. They went to parliament unilaterally and passed the NRF, the Natural Resource Fund, in 2019, vesting all of the powers and the roles, functions, responsibilities of the management of this fund in one person, in the then Minister of Finance, putting all of that power, concentrating all of that power into the hands of one person. And then they want to come now and talk about stealing oil money. They were setting up the mechanism for monies to be stolen. We now have corrected that. We have kept parts of the bill that were good and that can function, but we corrected the parts that needed to be corrected. We put the safeguards in place to ensure that no monies are stolen. And so anytime the monies have to be drawn from that account, it has to go into the consolidated fund. It then goes into the budget. It comes to the National Assembly and an appropriations bill. It is debated and scrutinized in the National Assembly. Every budget cycle we go through this. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We have these mechanisms and these safeguards in place already. And then even after these monies have been approved by the National Assembly and spent, it is then subject to scrutiny at the Public Accounts Committee when they review the spending of the previous years. So there are layers and layers of safeguards and protection for oil money. And so in the interest of accountability and transparency. And so that 18 million fiasco that took place in the past, that could not happen, and it will never happen under this bill. And also because we've put the penalties in place. So the minister who claimed that the 18 million was a gift, Winston Jordan, he would have gone to jail for 10 years based on the measures that we have put in place in this natural resource fund. So we have all of the safeguard mechanisms, and then we have the corresponding penalties for non-disclosure by the minister.
Thank you very much.
Is there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much, Susan. Bishop, I bring you in here, and I want us to, I think we ventilated so much on the bill. I think Guyanese are convinced about what the bill contains and how it will benefit them. But I think somehow we have an opposition that seems to be living in the past. For example, you had a group of people protesting, talking about the Santiago principles not being involved, when a great part of the bill is founded on those principles. So, and I don't think it's a case where these guys don't know. I keep going back to the point where they can't make an intelligent contribution. You look at the track record of the APNU+AFC in Parliament since the commencement of this 12th Parliament. They have not for a single occasion, whether it's the budget, whether it's the debate on a bill, whether it's a motion, made an intelligent comment. They hit the table, they make noise, and they walk with whistles as they did tonight. That's all they do. That's all they do. Bishop.
Well, Eddie, a couple of things. I thought at first that the speechwriters didn't get to deliver the script in time. Because oftentimes we sit in the government benches and we see their speeches are being delivered to them from some back room where somebody is trying to write something and tell them what to say. So it would appear that they didn't get their speeches in time. That probably is one of the reasons why they had to get involved in a ruckus and bullyism. But I am convinced they didn't read the bill. Aubrey Norton didn't read the bill. And even if he read it, he didn't understand it because some of the things that he is saying don't make sense. Now, the first money we got from oil was the 18 million signing bonus. My colleague, Susan Rodrigues, just spoke about it. They took that money and hid it. Never disclosed it to the Guyanese people. When the media asked about it, Winston Jordan, Raphael Trotman, and et al., they denied knowledge about it. One said he never requested, never received. And this money was hid from the Guyanese people. The bill that they're keeping all this noise about and broken up the parliament that they don't want to debate says if the Minister of Finance don't report within 30 days, I think it is, his receipts from oil money, he can go to jail. Winston Jordan hid the money for years, 18 months plus, denied it, and he's walking free. We are putting in place, never again, a Minister of Finance must receive money from our petroleum sector, oil and gas, and hide it, and the people of Guyana don't know. This bill requires that every receipt of oil money from every lift of oil must be gazetted. You must be able to pick up the gazette, add up the amount, and you know how much money, and you must be able to hear if the fund is reporting the same amount of money as you, the person who could add, whether on your cell phone or your calculator. This bill is providing for transparency. Before, and I heard Sanjeev spoke about this, the bill that they had never had a board of directors. You know what they had? A 22-man oversight committee. A board of directors are totally different from an oversight committee. So the management of the fund was left to Jordan or whoever they put as Minister of Finance. We have corrected that wrong. We have put in place a governance mechanism. And even though we put in place a board of directors, we still put in place an accountability and oversight committee, which reports to the National Assembly independently from the Auditor General or any other transparency mechanism. The point that we are making, the same things that civil society was calling for, the same things that everybody in the international community has been calling for. We must not get involved with the Dutch disease. We must ensure that every Guyanese prosper as a result of oil wealth. We must ensure that Guyana develop now and we got money put up for the future. Everything that was a matter of concern was addressed either in the local content bill or the natural resources fund bill. Rather than this group of people come to the National Assembly, read the bill, make constructive criticisms, put forth ideas to strengthen the bill, and to make all Guyanese benefit and ensure there are no loopholes, they blow whistles and chant, no thieving. But let's talk a little bit about thieving. Tonight they tried to thieve the maize. It looked gold and shiny. And at Ferguson tried to thieve the maize tonight from the National Assembly, aided and abetted by others. Last year, for 5 months, they tried to thieve a whole government. 5 months from March 2nd to August, when we took government, they tried to thieve a whole government. From 2018, 21st of December 2018 to March 2nd, they tried to thieve a whole country, squatting illegally in office. Before then, the first money they got from oil, they tried to thieve it, they stash it. Only God knows what they were to do with it if we didn't bring it out. So, you know, it's what old people say, their own shadow frightening them. Their own shadow frightening them. But if they had read the bill, they would have recognized that the PPPC administration, led by President Irfan Ali, has lifted the bar so high that we are holding ourselves accountable to the highest standards, which includes the Santiago Principles for the governance of sovereign wealth. So they didn't have an argument. The lawyers and those who claim to be the elite of society and those who want to behave like an urban middle class, and those who have that judo Christian spiritual aura to suggest that they are the decent, godly bunch, because they didn't have arguments to deal with this issue. They go to what they know best, gutter politics, yard full behavior, street brawl, and ends up with racism by calling the clerk, the member of staff of the National Assembly, House Negro. You know, I believe tonight, Eddie, in this late hour, I think people who woke up early and went to vote for the APNU, they're tearing up their jerseys now, you know. I believe they're sucking their teeth. I believe they are getting angry. Say, this is what I put you all there to do. You're embarrassing us in front of the whole world.
I think they did that a long time ago when they saw what happened, the display within the 5 months, and the blatant lies where they stare the nation in the face and their supporters and say to them that we won the elections. And they had just about 217,000 votes. So I think, and you're right, because we're running out of time. I'm trying to sneak in a few more things here. Is that you have a bunch of people, and I keep repeating this, and I hope people recognize that, who, that's all they know. That is all they know. To behave bad, to break up everything, to create confusion, to destroy. You look, they took over the country in 2015 to destroy the economy. They destroyed the infrastructure of this country. They destroyed the morale and the hope of the people of this country in 5 years. So that is all they do, they destroy. They don't have the ability to be engaged in anything meaningful, anything constructive, and to really, you know, make a contribution and to represent the people who voted for them. One would expect the couple of youngsters, if you want, that were placed in the National Assembly in the opposition benches would have breathed some fresh breath into the opposition, into the APNU+AFC. They are the most disappointing ones that you can think about in the National Assembly, who are spreading the racism. But, you know, what we saw tonight, I think a lot of Guyanese are not surprised. It is nothing strange to them, because that's the PNC. That's the slow fire, the more fire, slow fire PNC. That's the PNC that wants to make Guyana ungovernable. That's the same PNC that spoke about, undermining the government. And this is a manifestation, maybe, of those efforts. Suzanne, I give you a chance to give me some more comments. We have about 15 minutes, and I share it among you guys to wrap the program. So start with you, Suzanne, followed by Sanjeev and then Bishop.
Yeah, thanks, Eddy. I just want to take this opportunity to assure Guyanese that our government has their best interests at heart, that when we went to them in 2020 and we produced our manifesto and we said, these are the things that we are going to deliver in government. And we asked for their support, and they subsequently gave us their support by electing us to govern and to manage this country. We are saying to them, we will keep those commitments. We've been in office now for 16 months, and Bishop said it earlier, we have done so much in such a short time without oil money. But we also understand that the country, the population is impatient. There is a call for greater expediency. And now that we have the resources through this new industry, the oil and gas industry, we have to be prudent about how we spend this money. Of course, we are cognizant that we have to save money for intergenerational equity. So we have to save, we have to make sure, but we can't save all of the money. We have to spend money on improving the lives of ordinary Guyanese. We cannot be earning money from the oil and gas sector and not spending it on developing and improving the lives of Guyanese. People need better roads. People need better health care. We need the lights to stay on. Every day, people are complaining about the quality of water they're receiving in certain areas and in certain regions. We have plans on how we're going to fix all of these things, but we need access to resources to do that. And so by the passage of this legislation, the Natural Resource Fund, we can now unlock those resources so that we can bring development and to the people, and so that we can do it at an even greater speed. Then we have the local content bill, which was passed today. Now the Local Content Act, which is legally enforceable. And we can now bind oil companies and operators to ensure that local businesses benefit, that Guyanese benefit. And so we had a healthy debate on that today, and we were able to ventilate all of the clauses in that act, which allows Guyanese to access jobs on the one hand, and also allow local businesses to participate in the procurement of goods and services for the oil and gas sector. There again, unlocking huge potential for Guyanese to tap into and to improve themselves, to find work, and for them to grow their businesses. And so the future for Guyana is bright under our government. People have nothing to fear. All of the oil wealth and the resources will be managed in an open, transparent, and in an accountable way, which will be scrutinized by everyone. And Bishop said it before, we have simplified the formula for the monies that will be withdrawn from the fund. Anybody, any Guyanese with a calculator can be able to go to the Gazette and add up all of the money that is removed from the fund and placed into the budget. Everyone will have access to that. but they were proposing this complex formula that not even they could tell us how much money they are withdrawing from the fund. But I guess that was to cover up their own sinister motives. But now we have simplified all of that, and Guyanese will have access to that information, and they can rest assured that all of that money, some will go into savings, and the majority that will be spent on improving the lives of ordinary Guyanese and improving the standard of living. And that, Eddy, is what everyone is looking forward to. And we are looking forward to ensuring that we can keep our commitments, and so that, we can look people in their face when we go back to them in 2025 and say that we have done everything that we committed to doing. And that is the type of government led by His Excellency, Dr. Mohamed Irfaan Ali, and the people can trust us to get this job done.
Thank you very much, Minister Rodrigues. Sanjeev, I give you your closing comments before I ask Bishop to do so.
Ed, to follow up on what Minister Rodrigues said, this resource fund has to balance two things. How do you provide for the needs of Guyana present while you save some to provide for future generations so that our children and our grandchildren would be able to benefit? Now, the only way that that could be done, you see, much was said and much is said about the Norway model of the Sovereign Wealth Fund. With a little bit, if you actually look at it, in 2007, 8, and 9, the Norwegian fund lost money, for example. Right now, presently, the Norwegian fund are one of the largest shareholders in Apple Computing. They have invested in various things, in pipelines, in stock, because they have roads, they have electricity, they have water. They created the fund in the 1990s. At that time, Norway was one of the top 5 nations in the world when it came to GDP. So they had much development behind them when they created the fund with their oil wells. We are a poor country. We have to still provide health care to people, water to people, roads to people, electricity to people. So how could you say that the people who are existing and living in Guyana now, oh, well, you can't get anything, we got to save it for your grandson? But how does it get progressively there? So there has to be a formula, and that's what this legislation does. It says, look, we're going to take out for infrastructure and other projects now, but from then we will save 50%, 75%. Then you have fixed amounts, and you know how much money it is, Ed, because by law, everything we receive in the petroleum sector from the producers must be deposited in the fund, and the minister must declare it to the world. So every Guyanese knows. So this is certain. Now, this is why the smoke and mirrors of what the opposition is. They say the Santiago principles, but they don't adhere to them. They say it, but they don't want it. Because the Santiago principles would not have said, it's contrary to the principles that you have the minister in control of the decision-making part of the fund, that you have a very complicated way. One of the principles is that it should be independent decision-making. Another principle, there are 24, that you should be able to calculate easily the drawdown. How do you extract money from the fund? These are all things, Ed, that are catered for now. There is certainty going forward. Additionally, as Minister Rodrigues says, all the money has to be put in an appropriation bill, which means it's in the budget. And the budget is debated in the House, it's scrutinized by the Auditor General, there's the PAC afterwards. So there is scrutiny every stage of the money. They're scaring people by saying, well, oh, they're taking money out of the fund. Of course we have to take money out of the fund. How are we going to get electricity and water? And they preach Santiago principles. There's a funny thing about it. The man who started all of it in Chile, who managed their fund from copper, is a man named Eric Herrera, who was one of my lecturers. And then the funds got together in about 2006, the Dubai, everybody, and they came up with these principles, which were a lot to do with what the Chileans were doing to manage their money. And the principles are very simple, Ed. All that you have to do is follow the rules. Keep it independent, but you have to do two things at the same time. It must be independent, but the government of the day must be able to access money to look after the needs of the people. You can't have the government held ransom by some group of people who decide, well, oh, I don't think you should do that. Governments are elected to do the things that the people need. So they have to build the housing areas, they have to build the roads, the water, the electricity, they have to do that. But you don't want them to have absolute control, where with secrecy they can take money, where they can allot money for things other than development and things that you don't know, which is what the previous legislation in 2019, that's what it did. Nobody could figure out. These people didn't know what is half a 65. And they would have figured out that formula with the benchmark, with the petroleum benchmark, with the indexes that they spoke of. Nobody could figure it out. Nobody knew. They made it up. It was at the discretion of the minister who decides what the benchmarks were. Now, Ed, that was not the Santiago principles. Now we have a clear thing. We're taking 50%. We're taking 25%. We are taking it for the development of these projects. And the minister, you can't have a government held ransom by a group of people who are managing a fund that will not release what the government needs to look after the people. That wouldn't make sense. The government is elected to look after the people. They need money to do that. Now, the last piece of legislation had a whole lot to do with borrowing. How could you borrow? When you deposit the money in the bank, you get 2% interest when you save. But when you borrow, you pay 10% interest on a mortgage. How does it make sense, common sense, that you are saving the money and you are borrowing against the money? That is preposterous. That will never work. And those were the things that they wanted to do. They wanted to provide for such great borrowings against it. You can't do that. You're better off taking the money to fund your project. Now, these are all things that are clearly set out. And today is a monumental day for Guyana, because now we have a fund, now we have funds available from the petroleum sector to the government to fuel development, and we have local content, which means the local businesses now can now partake in the sector, and they are mandated to be, and they're entitled to be there. So while the government is driving the engine of growth in the infrastructure, the businesses are partaking and driving commercial benefits. So today was a remarkable day for Guyana. But you would never know that with people who want to come to the parliament, the blow brigade, literally blowing whistles all the time in parliament. You would never know that anything like that happened if you listened to them. But today was a good day for Guyana, a good day.
Thank you very much, Sanjeev. And of course, you would expect them to be blowing whistles. I mean, what else can come out of other than hot air from them? I mean,
the blow brigade.
Bishop, I give you the closing comments.
Thank you, Eddie. And let me just say I endorse the views of my colleagues, Minister Rodrigues, as well as Honorable Member Sanjeev Datadin. But Ed, a couple of things that the people of Guyana need to know as we close tonight. This bunch would appear that they're leaderless, visionless, and senseless. All day, opposition leader Harman was absent. I don't know why he was absent. Maybe that's part of the strategy so that they could be visionless, senseless, and leaderless. Secondly, the contempt that they showed for the speaker, the contempt that they showed for the speaker, the manhandling of the speaker, is a dark day for Guyana. But that was behavior on their side. I would like to congratulate my colleague, Dr. Singh, for standing his ground and being resilient, forceful, focused, and understanding the hour and the importance of the hour, and rallying through with his presentation so that we could get that bill passed, a legal framework to ensure that Guyana's prosperity and development is no longer delayed. I'd like to assure all Guyanese, we in the PPPC, we're not angels. We're not perfect. But I'll tell you this much. Our heart is in the right place. Our motives are pure. And what we want is for the good of Guyana. And every effort that we make to engage in debates, engage with the opposition, like we invited them this morning. Well, invited them last night for a meeting this morning. There were no shows. It is because we want national unity. We want all Guyana to benefit. Supporters of the APNU+AFC, I want to assure you, you will be beneficiaries from, as a result of this Natural Resources Fund bill. You will be able to walk into the hospital and get the MRI and the CAT scan and the ultrasound. You'll be able to get your hip replacement. You'll be able to get your heart transplant. Your children will get world-class education. Your grandchildren will be able to attend the University of Guyana for free. You will get better roads to drive on. The interland airstrips will be safer. The city fences will be properly kept so that we're not overtaken by the sea. You are the beneficiaries. Our senior citizens will benefit with better pensions. Our single women will benefit through better programs. Your children at the technical and vocational schools will get their skills training and their development. But your leaders are in the National Assembly saying, no, we don't want you to get it. And the PPP is saying, this is what we want to do for Guyana, including APNU+AFC supporters. So it's time that you choose what you're going to do with your future and who you're going to trust with the governance of Guyana. And tonight is a night when the PPPC stands out as a proud, intelligent, well-reasoned, well-measured, articulate, confident group that understands Guyana, understands where Guyana is going, and understands how to get Guyana to the next level by doing what is good for Guyana. The PPPC is good for Guyana. You need to determine what the APNU+AFC is. I would not describe that, but you will be able to describe that. It's the end of the year, Ed, 29th. Just now it will be 30th. So let me take the opportunity as well to wish all of your viewers and listeners a happy new year. And I can assure you, President Irfan Ali and his team, the cabinet, and all of our colleagues in the parliamentary team here at the PPPC will work every day and every night to benefit you, your children, and your children's children. Because a good man don't only take care of his children, he takes care of his children's children. The PPPC will ensure that generations to come benefit from the now while we put in place the mechanism for a prosperous Guyana for those who are there now and for the generations to come. The Natural Resources Fund bill, which was properly passed tonight in Parliament in the midst of the ruckus, provides that opportunity to bring prosperity and development to all the people of Guyana. Thank you, Ed, for the opportunity of sharing tonight, and thank you, colleagues, for sharing with me.
Bishop Juan
Thank you.
Minister of Public Works, Minister Susan Rodrigues, Minister within the Ministry of Housing and Water, Sanjeev Datadin, Member of Parliament. I want to thank you all so much for being part of this program, and I want to join with Bishop in wishing you all the best as we head into 2022. And of course, I think 2021, despite the challenges of the COVID-19 pandemic, has been quite exciting for the government in terms of what has been happening, the development that has been taking place, the progress that we have been making. And I can only foresee 2022, that we will see maybe double, triple of what we would have seen in this year. So to the three of you, I want to say a happy 2022, and to our viewers and listeners, I also want to take the opportunity to say happy 2022, happy new year. I'll give you both a chance also to, if you want to use the opportunity in closing to extend some greetings.
Thank you, Ed. Happy New Year, Bishop and Suzanne, and to all your viewers, and may your God be with you.
Likewise, thank you, Ed, and all the best to you and Sanjeev and Bishop, and to your viewers and listeners. A very happy and prosperous, peaceful, and of course healthy 2022. The future is bright for all of us.
Thank you very much, gentlemen, lady, and to our viewers and listeners. Have a good rest of the evening. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.